very happy to have Chair of Workers' Party, Sylvia Lim, and new face, Jackson Au, with us today. Firstly, I want to congratulate you. I guess a belated congratulations for your wedding this year.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Better late than never.
Yes, better late than never. I felt that we want to dive straight into politics. I think we can start with Jackson first. And I guess in this era of social media, people constantly looking at you. It's a very public thing, right? So I'm just wondering what made you join politics?
First of all, thank you very much for having us today. To answer your question very simply, it was my wife. My wife inspired me to follow my heart and align myself with my cause that I believe in. Back in after GE2020, in the afterglow of the Workers' Party winning another GRC, I was caught up in that fever, but I didn't really use my time productively then. I was one of what you would call a typical keyboard warrior. So on Reddit, you will see me typing angry comments like, "Oh, this is not good. That is bad. I can do things better." And my wife was volunteering then in Tanjong Pagar, where we were staying with Leon Perera.
I see.
She was just quietly contributing and helping her community and giving her part back to society. And I was just so embarrassed at myself. I was like, "Oh, look at what I'm doing. I'm wasting my time. I'm so embarrassed at it." So I just said, "Okay, enough is enough. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is."
Yeah.
And I wrote to Leon Perera, who was at that time the media team head for the Workers' Party.
Yes.
And I said, "Hey, Leon, I work in communications, but I'm happy to do whatever you want. Can I volunteer with you?" And that is how it started. Right. So the joke I always tell people who ask me this, right, is it's more stubbornness. You need that stubbornness with opposition. My wife, you volunteer with Perera. I also find my own Perera, and that's how I ended up in the Workers' Party.
So there must be an interesting, household bedtime conversation, right? Both Pereras in different camps. How do you navigate that in a personal life?
A lot of people also ask me this question as a follow-up when they find it. It is interesting, but I think my wife and our relationship shows that, you can have differences in opinion, you can have differences in perspective, and you can still push in the same direction. And I think, I like to speak for her. I think our relationship is quite good despite our differences. And Sylvia has met my wife several times, and she will share her own assessment of that.
Yeah, I enjoy talking to her. Yeah. Find her a very real person, and in fact, we have an appointment to meet soon over some drinks.
I see.
Probably to talk about Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson, you mentioned that you were caught up with the whole GE2020 WP win, right, of Sengkang. Is that the main factor to decide to, hey, I want to volunteer with Workers' Party? Are you looking at other parties also, maybe?
Not really. Other parties, I won't say that I'm looking at them, but I think the Workers' Party aligns a lot with my personal beliefs, my personal conviction. And I think more than anything, the Workers' Party is a platform, right, where, yes, there are a lot of accomplished, a lot of very highly credentialed people in the party that I'm very proud to walk with. But it is a platform where I like to think ordinary people can contribute and make a difference, no matter how small it is. So that's how I started, really. I wrote to Leon and said, "Hey, I work in comms. I kind of understand how a press office works. I can help you." But I didn't do any of that work at all for the first year. I was carrying bags of rice. I was moving chairs. Things, very simple things in the grassroots. But it means a lot to the people that you do these things for. That's how I started.
And of course, with Leon leaving the party, what was that like for you? I guess it was almost like losing a mentor of sorts.
Yeah, it was a very funny experience, and I'm sure we'll go into it in more details later. But Leon, I'm not ashamed to say that I got along very well with Leon, and he did bring me into the party. He's a very fun guy. He's a very generous guy, and I think when he left, it was a bit of a sad day for opposition politics. Not only because I lost a friend, right, but I think Singapore lost that voice that Leon was a very good voice in Parliament.
I guess what did your family and friends think of? Because you mentioned did they have a reaction when you said you were joining the opposition or joining WP?
I would say that it was mixed to negative, and it's funny because of my wife's affiliation. I think in-laws are a bit more wary and they think like, well, I don't know about this. But my own family, they're ambivalent about it. They're like, okay, if you feel like you're doing the right thing and you have that conviction to do this, go ahead. Why limit yourself? And I also have a twin brother, and I managed to bring him into the party as well. And he is he like me. Also, we try to do our part. And he volunteers in Sengkang GRC. And the reason was I was volunteering with Sylvia in Aljunied at the time. And I said, no, this place can only have one tiger, which is me. So I sent him to Sengkang. But I think they are. My wife is supportive of me. My own family is very supportive of me, and I think you need that bedrock of support to keep you going when you do when you do volunteer with opposition.
And now I'm wondering whether we are speaking to the real Jackson.
He doesn't. He looks a lot better than me. He's a lot leaner, a lot fitter, and I've put on the pounds over the years.
Right. I want to continue with the whole tango with whole WP, PAP side of things. Recently, I watched a video. I think, Sylvia, you were speaking at the WP Youth Forum.
Oh.
Speaking of your experience of voting in 1991. Because that was when, correct me if I'm wrong, but you voted for the PAP then. Because you I think you panicked or something. Could you run us through the experience again? I think for a lot of young first-time voters, people are also quite curious to know how the process works.
Sure. So I was narrating then during the forum about my experience voting in the 1991 general election. And to the best of my recollection, I do not recall voting in any earlier election. Right. So when I arrived at the polling station, of course, the procedures are such that the officers on duty, they have to call out your full name and your voter number. And it's very loud, Okay, so at that moment, I do not know what got into me. And there was this sudden feeling that, oh my God, it's like I'm going to be marked in some way. And at that time, I was about to join the Singapore Police Force as a police officer. I was going through the HR processes, interviews and vetting. And I was also concerned that somehow I would not be accepted because it was a job that I was really looking forward to do. Yeah. So it was just a few seconds of panic, and I decided to vote PAP for safety reasons for myself, but that was actually not my intention when I was going to the polling station. So it was really an episode that taught me a few things. Number one, that you have to know how the process works, and basically what the process is that under the Parliamentary Elections Act, this calling out of name and voter number has to be done. But that's because there are polling agents from the different parties contesting. They are sitting there and they will cross out your attendance so that, it's like a check against double voting and things like that. So that is the purpose, nobody, and anyway, your vote is secret. So people should have the confidence in that. So I told myself that I'm not going to make this mistake again. And I hope all voters also have the same mindset that, look, have confidence. We have been following the voting process all this while. We follow the sealing of the ballot boxes after counting. And it goes to the Supreme Court, and 6 months later we see that our signatures, our seals are still intact. So people should have confidence that your vote is secret. You just vote according to what you want to do, and do not be distracted by some of these processes that may seem, incomprehensible to you, or you might have suspicion. But no, we would definitely say that voters should have confidence in the voting process.
Yeah, I do feel the same way when I first voted. I was like, wow, Tan Sing Chi. Then I'm like, why do you need to call my name out loud? Then there's this number. I'm not sure about you, Jackson. Was that the same feeling that you have?
Not really. And I think it's just different circumstances, different background. I think I had the sense of, so what if you don't vote for a certain party? Yeah. So why should you be punished, or why should punitive measures be meted out to you just because you have a different view of the government of the day? So I've always been a bit stubborn in that sense, and in that I'll vote in my interest. I'll vote in Singapore's interest, and I'm not beholden to any view. Yeah, that is my take on it, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Tharun, have you voted before?
Yes.
How was it like for you then?
It was a bit nerve-wracking. Because it's a
You're
very
queuing
formal
up,
procedure.
it's
Yeah.
hot, you know,
Yeah. And I guess it was my first time as well, so it was a bit like,
Right.
okay,
You
what's
won't make
going
the same
on?
mistake
Like,
again.
Yeah.
depends on what you call a mistake. Necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you think, I mean, the atmosphere around voting has changed a little bit? I mean, I guess when you first ran, and it must have been quite different back then, voting for the opposition or being an opposition member, as opposed to now. And so I guess I'm a lot less anxious or afraid about making that stance open or public, at least. Yeah.
I think it's an excellent development. You know, if I look back at my 20 over years in this business, if you can call it that, things have changed. I mean, we see now that there are more young people that feel that they can contribute by joining WP, which was not really the case when I first joined in 2001. You know, the environment was quite different. And I think it's a healthy development overall. I mean, that Singaporeans want to take charge of the future of Singapore, you know, and they know that there are avenues besides the ruling party through which they can do this. And people should also remember that I think the fact that you come forward to be a candidate, it actually empowers your fellow citizens to vote. You just imagine if people didn't bother to do this, then it'll be walkovers, and you know, the government doesn't have to bother about getting a mandate if they are not being contested. So it's a very valuable something to be defended.
And if I could add to what Chair just said, right, it is very encouraging to me, even though the results it doesn't result in more parliamentary seats for other views. It is very reassuring to me that in the last general election, almost 40% of Singaporeans did not vote for the ruling party or the incumbent government. That's 2 in 5 Singaporeans. I think I look back at one of the rally speeches I think Mr. Lau delivered, where it was very early days and they had the sentiment that Sylvia described, which is that climate of fear, right? And they said, what are they going to do? Are they going to round up all the people who voted for the opposition in Hougang? They're not going to do that, because it is the civic right of people to express their views at the ballot box however they wish.
I don't know, when we have been talking about reasons joining politics and all. Sylvia, do you think any of Jackson's motivations mirrors yours when you first joined?
Well, I certainly didn't do it because of my partner or anything, to challenge my partner, you know. Yeah. So mine was really born out of what I felt was a necessity at that time. In 2001 was when I joined WP, so that's 24 years ago.
Yes.
You know, it's quite a long time ago. And at that time, what really bothered me was the fact that we just had a general election in 2001 and 2/3 of the seats were not contested.
Right.
Because it was a snap election in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks in the US. And I, being a person who believes in democracy, I just felt that, I mean, I have to do my part to ensure or try to ensure that our elections don't go down this road of multiple walkovers and things like that. So instead of just complaining, so in that sense, a bit like Jackson, you know, he was keyboard warrioring, but I was just complaining verbally. You know, I said that, you know, I have to do something about it because my conscience dictates that I do it. So that was the circumstance, you know, and that was when I wrote to Mr. Lau, who was the Secretary General of the party at the time, and said that I want to join the party and I want to help the party. So quite a different scenario.
I guess connected to that, then do you think the role of the opposition has changed since, you know, I guess if the motivations back then was sort of expanding the role of the opposition when you first ran, has that changed now?
Oh, to me, anyway, fundamentally, the role is still the same in the sense that you still have an overwhelmingly strong ruling party. And right now, any opposition party that manages to get parliamentary seats will function as a check, right? I mean, I don't see any opposition party right now being able to take over the government. It will take some time, yeah. So I would say fundamentally the role is the same. But I would say that elections have become more contestable. So, for instance, when I joined in 2001, breaking through in a GRC was a pipe dream, you know.
Right.
But the circumstances came together in 2011 when WP managed to take Aljunied. And these days, to say that GRCs are not winnable, I think it is proven to be not true now. So this is the other thing which I think it is evolved. So while the role of opposition, I think, still remains in Parliament as a check, but I think elections have become more contestable. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Aljunied, I think, could you take us back 2011 when the results were announced? What was it like? I mean, they call it a watershed election. It must be, I don't know, electrifying for you.
It was because it had never, been done. But of course, we were fortunate in the sense that a few things came together for us. First of all, there was public unhappiness at that time over a few things. Key things that I recall were things like overcrowding because of excessive immigration, or what people thought was excessive immigration. Then you had unhappiness over ministerial salaries. There was also concern about housing prices at that time. At the same time, of course, I would say one game changer was the fact that Mr. Lau Tia Kiang came out of Hougang SMC to lead the Aljunied team. And, through the years of building up his reputation as a person who's rational, pro-Singapore, etc., I think people had confidence, that the team, sort of under his leadership, was electable. And then we also had the entry of certain high-profile, people with successful careers like Mr. Chen Shomao, was a renowned international lawyer and so on. So we were helped by some of these factors, yeah. But not always that these factors will come together. Yeah. And I would say winning a GRC or any seat is still difficult. But if you're there at the right time with the right formula, then similar in Sengkang too. Something in a way to us unexpected, but hey, we're so happy about that.
Wanted to follow up with that. I'm not sure whether I should ask this, but talking about Mr. Lau leaving Hougang, have it crossed your mind to also, try for another place? Because you are also as well established as Mr. Lau.
I wouldn't want to say that I'm equal to Mr. Lau in any way, I think the party going into any election, we have an elections committee, right? And the elections committee will look at the boundaries that are announced and decide what is the best chance of success for the party. So whether it is for incumbent MPs to remain where they are or to move out, there's always a calculation that we try to make based on the best information that we have. So I would say that nothing is ruled out, but we will have to defer to the decision of the elections committee.
Fair. I want to ask Jackson this about your stepping into this GE, right? Into this, I guess, maybe it's like a firing squad of sorts. And how do you think you can contribute to the team?
It's a very funny descriptor. Let me just say that. I think there is a lot of scrutiny on a lot of new faces such as myself. But I think if you are sincere in your beliefs and you are sincere about serving residents and walking the ground and talking to people and making sure that voices are heard and represented, I don't think that there's anything you need to fear. And I think beyond individuals like myself, right, the party has a very established brand. When I do my house visits and I wear my member's shirt, right, people see that red circle with the hammer, and they have a lot of love and a lot of affection for us because they understand how difficult it is for us to walk the opposition path. And they do want to channel their support. And we carry a lot of their hopes and a lot of their expectations. All I can say to try and answer your question as succinctly as I can is that we will give it our best shot and we will try whatever we can to get electoral success, because that's what it means to the people who support us in the wards we contest.
Yes, I think you pointed on the branding side of things for Workers' Party. I feel obviously it has reached a more prominent stage than previously. Do you feel that kind of warmth also from people?
For sure, and I think it really speaks to people like Mr. Lau, Sylvia, their efforts in building up this party to be rational, respectable, reasonable opposition. I will also caution that ground sentiment doesn't really reflect the full picture, just as online sentiment doesn't really translate into the electoral results. But we take it as it is. for our job, I think I have a very simple way of viewing it, which is that every door you knock, every conversation you have, you are a representative of the party, and you try to advocate for it. And you try to tell people we are reasonable. Please give us a chance, and we'll do our best for you.
Right. What is one key issue that you guys have heard during your blog visits and the main feedback?
I think it's quite obvious that cost of living is top of people's minds. I think the government is also aware of this. So that's one big issue. There is concern about HDB housing prices. So in terms of bread and butter, I would think that, to me anyway, these are the two things that are topmost of people's minds.
Is it the same for you?
I agree. I think bread and butter stuff is the most prominent. But I think the electorate, if I can speak for them, is becoming more sophisticated, that they're also looking at, wider governance issues and how democracy functions. And they do care about issues in our society in that regard. They worry about whether there might be executive overreach. They worry about how certain laws translate into the freedom of expression or freedom of information. So there is that growing segment. But you're absolutely right. Sylvia's absolutely right in that the number one issue going into this election will be cost of living and how to manage it.
Yeah. On that, I wonder whether there's a difference between the younger voters now and the older ones. My dad likes to say Singaporeans 好家好困. Then what is there to bother about all these things, right? I mean, 好家好困 means you eat well and sleep well. You're doing okay in life. Is that the main difference for you when you listen to?
Okay, I obviously can only talk about my observations. I think cost of living also affects young people, and in many ways, like you want to get into your first flat, you want to start a family. And why is our total fertility rate so low? People often cite, the worries about the cost of raising a child. So I would say that these soon-to-be parents or potential parents, their worries are not very different in this aspect, from people who are older, because it is also down to some of these bread and butter issues. But of course, what Jackson mentioned about more aspirational kinds of priorities, like what kind of society should Singapore be? Whether we have a vision of a kinder society or a society that is more sustainable in terms of its development and all that. This I think tends to come up more in the younger generation, and to me it's quite obvious because they're going to be around for a lot longer. You see, So maybe Jackson, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I will caveat that I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore, but I like to think I'm a relatively younger Singaporean.
Yeah.
And I share many of the same fears, hopes, concerns, aspirations that younger Singaporeans have. What I'll add, right, is that younger Singaporeans today, I have this thought, so I think they do as well, is whether will my life be better than my parents? And that is what they probably think about a lot. And I'm not sure what the answer is for many Singaporeans. They're increasingly, they're called the sandwich generation for a reason, because they have, cost pressures in starting a family, starting themselves off in life, getting a home, but they also have to care for an aged population in Singapore. It is very tough and challenging for young Singaporeans. So it's that sense of, it's a very pervasive sense of worry, anxiety in society. I think I looked at an IMH report recently, don't quote me on this, but 1 in 3 young Singaporeans are facing like severe anxiety disorders or issues. It's very alarming and very concerning. And I can't articulate it well, so please forgive me, but it's something you feel on the ground. When you take the trains, you have that sense of, are we moving towards that compassionate, caring society that Sylvia is talking about? And I don't know if we are.
I think the part about you mentioned the better life, and I think that's what at least my parents would like to hope for me too. Hopefully better lives, and I think on that there's some cross generational. You want to talk about maybe for Sylvia your role in the party, maybe when you joined in 2001, and then I think you became chair 18 months later.
2003 lah.
Yeah, 2003, and that was quite quick succession to that position? Could you take us through that?
Well, I think it was because we just didn't have enough people at the time. Yeah, I mean, really frankly, because when I joined the party in November 2001, we didn't even have, I think, enough people to fill all the seats in the CEC, the Central Executive Committee, compared to today when, it's hotly contested because many people actually want to be in the committee. So at that time, we were short of people, and we were also wanting to work towards building the party for the future elections, right? And the next election would be in 2006. So whoever was in the leadership at that time thought that it would be good if I contested for the chair position. So we had a vote on it. And the majority of the cadres decided to support me as a new person. So I'm quite honored by that, and they've never had a woman also, in such a position. So, I've been there in that position for the last 22 years. It's quite, probably institutionally a little bit embarrassing, I think.
Why is it embarrassing?
Well, because there is such a thing as not overstaying your welcome, right? And so I have always hoped, especially in the last few years, that we would be able to have a new person taking over, but looks like it would just be a little bit longer. Yeah. So it was a very different period of time, I think in 2001 and 2003 when I became the chair.
Do you see yourself eventually moving on from that position? And when would that be? But when would that be, you think? Next GE?
When the party is ready and elects a new chairperson, I would be most happy to pass the torch on.
In 2018, there was the leadership transition in the party. From Mr. Lau to the leader of opposition, Pitam. And you remain as chair, At that point, did you ever consider, throw my name into the hat and to also, I don't know, to become perhaps the first secretary of the party?
No, never. I've never aspired to be the secretary of the party. Because I prefer to do what I'm doing now as the chairperson, I don't think that I will be the best person to be the secgen. Number one, I worry a lot. So I think the level of worry for a person who carries the role of a leader of the opposition, but that came later. But as a secretary of the party, can be tremendous, It's not that I don't worry now in my position, but at least I know that it's a team thing, and my role is actually to lead in certain ways, but in the end, we all know the SecGen is the CEO. It's like in the PAP, the SecGen is the Prime Minister of Singapore, and it's quite clear, in that sense. So I have never aspired to be the SecGen, and I think I play my role best, in this capacity which I have now.
I think I want to mash two things together now. It will be a miss for me not to say this. If talk about different roles, right? And of course, I want to ask a footballing thing too.
Oh, okay.
If the role of what would you say is the role of the SecGen in football terms? Maybe is it the captain of the team?
Leadership-wise, yes, I agree. But if you talk about football technicalities and what position they should play, that one we may have to go into more details.
Right. So for as a chair, what would be that role on the team, football team that you play?
Okay, I would like to speak more from the fact that I am now, considered a senior member of the party also because of the length of time that I've been there.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say that for me, I find that I contribute best now in some kind of a custodian position, So for instance, so I don't know whether you call it goalkeeper or defender, I don't know lah. But the fact is that because say in Parliament, for instance, I'm the one in WP with the most parliamentary experience because I had one term as a non-constituency MP, 2006, before we were elected in 2011. So now I'm in that sense the one with the most experience on our side. And when certain things happen, I can roughly tell that, okay, this is the pattern. Normally it'll either be this way or that way, So I find that that's where I can contribute best. So I would say that my role now is not so much to be the attacker, which I've done already. or to be the one that's the main person to be attacked. I've also done that, So now I think it's good for the MPs who need, this frontline experience to actually be put in the frontline more. So I find myself sort of going into a role of like I say, more of a custodian role. I mean, that's what I see here.
Right. For Jackson, I suppose there's a new face. Would you gonna be the striker?
No.
The star striker.
I think it's quite funny because I love the football analogy, but I was always the very unathletic, very fat kid that they're like, oh, you can't play anywhere. Oh, you go goalkeeper lor. That's what they told me in the past.
Yeah.
But I think if you were to ask me what is the role of a secretary or a chair, right? I think the roles themselves don't matter. Maybe someone could be inspirational. They could lead from the center of the field, like Gerard, Keane, or Vieira, these kind of types. But I think more than anything, the emphasis is on the team. You can't win the game or the match alone, even if you have someone who is so prominent. It's a full team effort. Everyone has to play their part, right, and move towards that direction. Hopefully you score a few goals, don't score any own goals, and you'll win the match. That is how I see it. It's the team effort more than the individual responsibility.
Right, because there's this argument of, hey, if you have a Messi or Ronaldo on your team, the individual brilliance
Yes.
can carry the entire team forward. But to this day, there's of course, the leader of the opposition is one such character, I suppose. Yeah. Is there I don't know, maybe
Too risky, I would say.
Too risky?
Yeah. I mean, if you have a key man risk like that, what if something happens to your key man, right?
And if I could just add to that point, right, I think my perspective anyway is that, yes, you have star players, you have people who are very good at what they do, right? But the machinery behind the party, right, is that nothing will get done. And I've seen this firsthand. Nothing gets done unless you have that core of dedicated volunteers who are generally in the background, nameless and faceless. And it's I feel for them because they contribute, right? They don't seek any fame or fortune, and without them, very little gets done in the party. And I really have to say, I can't sing their praises enough. I really think the emphasis should be on the team rather than the individual.
I will agree with that. I think it's a team sport. I don't know whether you guys remember this guy called John O'Shea from United.
Of course.
He can play multiple positions,
Yes.
but he's not great. I'm sorry, but he's not great.
He nutmegged Figo, just FYI.
Oh yes, he nutmegged Figo. So I always remember the coach saying, "Hey, you need more John O'Sheas on the team to do the dirty work." I mean, not in that sense, but in a footballing sense, So to stretch it even further, I mean, to stay on this football topic, Sylvia, you experienced Mr. Lau, then as chair, as a secretary, and now Pritam. Which football team would you describe then and now?
I think that we have to move away from this football analogy because although, like I say, I watch football vicariously, but I mean, I don't go into the technicalities of which team plays and what style and all that.
Okay.
But I would say, as a general point, that you need the correct person for the correct time, right? And now that I think the electorate has also evolved. So, and Mr. Lau, he's very conscious of this. He knows that. And he keeps telling me and others this, that he does not want to be a baggage to the party. Meaning that if he feels that, another person is better in that role, then he'll happily retire, which is actually what he's doing now. And looking at the way that elections are run these days, or even politics in Singapore in a general way, the way the public consume information, how to communicate and all that, definitely I think, having a younger leader like Pritam, who understands this landscape well, is suitable for this time. So I mean, we have to evolve also.
I guess
there was one period of time. Okay, when Mr. LKY Lee Kuan Yew was still in Parliament, I remember I came to the realization that in the whole of Parliament, among all the MPs, the only 3 people that did not have social media accounts were Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, Mr. Lau, and myself. So I had to evolve as well, you see. Yeah. So just a little,
No, but don't you miss that those days without social media? I mean, you can. I don't need to do my.
Yes, in terms of the fact that you had more rest, but no, in terms of the fact that social media gives you a chance to create content without being edited by the mainstream media editors, right? So in the past, for example, we used to hear that before social media. So in fact, during JB Jeyaretnam's time, he would call a press conference. Okay, the press would come, and then whatever message would be delivered, and then the next day nothing was reported.
Okay.
See, but this can't happen today. See,
Yeah.
so we take it as an opportunity. I mean, there's a low barrier to entry to create social media content, so we will make use of it. And WP actually has been putting a lot of resources to try to up our social media game.
Right, right. I recall, was it your first few posts you talk about Feng Shan, the Orlo?
Was it the first?
Is it the
one?
first few?
Taste of function.
But I remember it was.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
was quite a splash. No?
Some people reacted to it, lah. They were not amused at all.
I recall. Yes, I recall. Jackson, any strategy that you? I mean, you're in communications yourself.
Yes,
In terms of social media, how are you going to wield it to your advantage this time around?
Well, I have to caveat that my background is not all quite that interesting, because the communications that I do is very corporate, so it's very polished, it's very seamless, it's very curated.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of content doesn't, from what I've seen in my time in the party's media team, it doesn't really resonate with the electorate. What people want to see on social media, and again, this is just my opinion, feel free to disagree with me if you do, but people want to see authenticity. They want to see your sincerity, and they like to receive periodic updates from the party. I think videos of Sylvia singing at events, or candid moments, very 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 received very well. The things that aren't received too well, or maybe they don't reach the right audience, are very dry COS debates, policy stuff. Yeah, that I think we need to invest more time into putting it out there, because it is important, that sort of content. Yeah.
I mean, do you think that campaigning and the election landscape has changed quite a bit in terms of, say, like with social media and with sort of the need to kind of adapt to this? Is this something easy to adapt to? How's that been?
Well, of course, like we said, people rely less on in-person sort of events, like, say, election rallies, because I noticed that, in fact, this has been happening for a few elections already. Many people actually get videos of what is said in the rally sent to them. And this happens across the generations. So you will see older people at the coffee shops, their grandchildren have sent them stuff to watch.
Yeah.
So I would say that that is certainly, I think, helpful, because quite often we wonder, for our rallies, WP rallies tend to be well attended. But of course, we don't know whether of these tens of thousands of people there, how many are actually living in the areas that WP is contesting? Because we tend to contest only in a few constituencies, right? So we don't know whether we're actually speaking mostly to people who can't vote for us anyway. But this amplification through the social media, I think, is extremely helpful to us. And in the coming election, I mean, we have, I think, not yet the full range of campaigning modes being told to us, what can be used, what cannot be used. If I'm not wrong, we're still waiting for some confirmations there. But I mean, what to do, but one of the things, as an older person, I can say that, because I've just turned 60, is that I personally am not comfortable with the politics of the soundbite. I don't like that. Because there may be, just one or two sentences, but what is behind that? What is the context? It's important, I feel, for people to know, but people don't seem to have time for that these days. Yeah. So people receive, say, TikTok videos or whatever, and then there's maybe a main headline, and that's probably the main thing they remember. But what brought that on, or whether there's any caveat to it, seems to be quite difficult that people don't have patience for that,
So you'd say it's kind of like a double-edged sword, like this social media.
I would say so. But the thing is that we have to play this game. We have to also communicate in a way that reaches the people we care about. So we have to also curate our own. And I think media team has been working quite hard on that.
Yeah, I mean, speaking about rallies, right? I mean, the last GE there wasn't any. Do you expect it to be a revenge rally sort of thing? It'll be even more crowded in a WP rally now. Yeah. Or
I think Singaporeans actually enjoy the event. I mean,
yes.
it comes once in 5 years, right? And it's a chance really to be at a gathering where everybody is equal. I find that quite magical, actually, because in normal life you will find that, okay, although we're all citizens, we know that some people have more money, some people have more power, some people feel that they're not heard, right? But in such a scenario like a GE, and in a rally, everybody has one vote anyway. We don't care whether you live in a GCB, you live in low value housing or low cost housing, doesn't matter, you see. So that is very empowering, So I think people will still come. But I think on our side, because there has been some urban redevelopment, so some of the traditional rally sites that we used to have, like in Hougang SMC, there was a field that it's very famous, but that is now no longer available. So there's some change in that. So yeah, I think fewer rally sites. But people will still come because it's once in 5 years and it's time to, enjoy the atmosphere. But I hope people also take it seriously because we have serious things to say.
Yes, of course. For Jackson yourself, if you were to speak at a rally, right? I mean, Sylvia spoke about sound bites, and that which are not necessarily good because of the lack of context, but sound bites are also important. I mean, everybody will remember the leader of the opposition saying, "Oneself, check oneself." Yes. That's quite famous. So I'm wondering whether you have any. You're planning for certain moments, blockbuster moments, maybe.
Again, I am a relative novice compared to the chair here.
Any tips from?
I've never been to any rallies myself, so it is. It can be a daunting experience, I imagine, because you're speaking there with a lot of people placing this expectation and hope on you. With regards to what you said about soundbites, right? I think it swings both ways. Of course, there are good soundbites that transcend. Public perception is carried very well, but there are also bad sound bites, and I don't know if I should name the specific example, but when then DPM Heng came to the East Coast and he tried to articulate the East Coast plan, but he didn't do quite a good job of it. I think even today he's finding it difficult to convince the residents of East Coast what exactly the East Coast plan is. But that's what I'll say about the sound bites. They swing both ways.
On that note of rallies, I mean, I've never been to. I've actually never been to like.
It shows how young we are.
It's quite a festive thing, You go there, everybody.
Exactly.
I enjoyed it tremendously. I missed it a lot.
You miss it.
I missed it. I remember going to the Yishun Stadium one. I was walking. It was a walk away from the train station. We were walking. It was cheering. It's quite crazy. I love it. Yeah.
But I'm kind of worried for you, Jackson. I mean, I guess you've never been behind the scenes of like a physical rally before, I'm presuming. I mean, are you nervous about it? Anxious? Like, what do you think are the challenges you're going to be facing in this? If you were to be.
I am nervous, for sure. There's a bit of nerves going on at the moment, but I think, and Chair told me about this previously, but beyond the rally setup, right, what's important is to get your message out there, because you can go to these rallies and you can have, raucous fans cheering you on and saying, yeah, we'll support you, we'll vote for you. And then after the rally, everyone, disassemble, everyone just disperses and heads home, and they're chanting on the streets and everything. And then when you look at the results at the ballot box, it doesn't really translate. So this is what really Sylvia spoke to before. It's not just about speaking at the rallies, it's about making sure that your message reaches the people that it needs to. And you can convince people that, I am a credible person, I'm speaking credibly about this. I hope you can give me your support.
Is there any bit of advice or sort of guidance that's been given to you by the senior leadership that sticks with you, or something that you're holding on to going into this GE?
I think
or maybe from Sylvia.
I have received a lot of wisdom from Sylvia, and I'm thankful for it. I think the one that stuck out to me the most, just because of how blunt and funny it was Sylvia told me, "Don't die." The first rule of opposition politics is don't die, and it really speaks to the
I said that.
That's wonderful advice.
It really speaks to the testament of the resilience of the opposition, because you're operating the system, right, which is, for lack of a better term, stacked against you. You don't get government resources. There's a lot of scrutiny on you, and people watch your every step, and they see what you're going to do, and they see how they can, test you in certain ways. And the mantra of "don't die" really speaks to the resilience that you need to be in opposition politics. You have to persevere through the challenges and try to emerge stronger, because it's not just for yourself. It is for a lot of the Singaporeans that place that hope on you.
Yeah. And
Do you not remember telling me this, Sylvia?
Did I use exactly those words?
It might have been you or Pritam, but
I don't.
yeah.
But WP has been around for a long time, and we have been through lots of ups and downs. I would say so. we are probably the only party that was formed before Singapore was independent, 1957. Besides the PAP, the only pre-independence party that is actually actively contesting elections today. So that tells you a lot about the spirit of the party. I mean, it's never going to be smooth sailing. And I personally feel that the ruling party, of course, will pay more attention to you when you actually make gains, you see, which is actually what's happening now, modest as our gains are. So we have to be up to the challenge. I mean, we want progress, so we have to tread carefully in whatever we're doing.
To add on to that, I think a new face, Harpreet Singh, said something, quoted saying something.
Yes.
What was the line again?
He's very quotable.
Yeah. So he was quoted saying he entered politics to correct the course that Singapore is taking. I quote, "We are going in the very opposite direction of where Singapore needs to go." I mean, is it such a dire state that that we need to go in the complete opposite direction, you think?
I think we'll leave Harpreet to explain exactly the context of that statement. Yeah, but I think the WP goes into every election with a manifesto that looks at things that we feel need to be changed. Some things can remain the same. So maybe on that note, we can talk about the accusation sometimes that people have thrown at us that we are PAP light, and I disagree with that completely. Okay, first of all, it's important to remember that there have also been policy changes which the PAP has made, which WP actually advocated years before, right? Examples are, for the longest time, from JB Jeyaretnam's time even, we have been very concerned about the fact that poor people can't afford legal representation to go to court when they're charged with criminal offences. And for a very long time, the government didn't want to get involved in supporting this effort until 2014 or so, when they started to fund, some of these schemes. The other thing which is topical now is support for people who have become unemployed. WP, since 2006 manifesto, we have been talking about the need for some sort of unemployment insurance, to tide people through this period. And at the same time, also, there are things where we starkly disagree with them, and these tend to pertain to more governance issues. So, for example, we do not support the creation of the elected presidency. We have made this known for a long time. We think that there should be freedom of information laws enacted, because the citizens deserve to know, some of this information that can be declassified over a certain period of time. We have advocated for lowering the voting age to 18. All these things the PAP does not agree with. So I just wanted to put that on record.
Yeah.
I guess we can, on that note, sort of the past few years have seen, I don't know if you'd characterize it as such as, I guess there's been quite a few setbacks for the WP. There have been certain issues, court proceedings. There have been sort of resignations. I mean, could you guys share your reflections and thoughts on this? Like, what do you guys think
about the fact that there are setbacks?
Yeah.
I mean, there will always be setbacks. I think, we go into it with our eyes open. As I said, being in an opposition party in Singapore, the reality is that you're subject to a lot of scrutiny, right? And there will be some issues and problems from time to time. I mean, we've seen it all before. If I recall much earlier, there was a time when WP was even facing a winding up, of the party. But through it all, I mean, as I said, it is a resilience in the party to overcome these setbacks, to learn from them, and to move on from there. So going forward, I mean, I will not be able to say that there won't be anything that comes our way in the future, because that's impossible, right? The landscape is such. But the fact is that there's a team, there's an organization, so there is some capacity there for us to, redeploy or reorganize ourselves in such a way that the party can move on.
Yeah, but do you feel like there's been a response on the ground from residents to these issues? Are you hearing from them? Do you think is there a feeling of maybe trust that has to be rebuilt?
Well, there are many different views on the ground, right? So the people that tend to talk to us, I would say, tend to be people who are supportive of our effort. So quite often we hear encouraging statements. People start to donate to us, when things like this happen. But of course, what about those people that don't talk to us about it? I mean, we have to be aware of the fact that there could be some swing voters or some people who don't support us anyway, and they may use some of these setbacks against us. I mean, this is the reality. So we will have to work hard to convince everyone that our heart is in the right place, that we are pro-Singapore and we can still add value to the landscape.
Yeah. And
I won't speak about the incident with Raisa because I wasn't in the party then, but I had a front row seat to what happened with Leon and Nicole. And I think that whole incident emphasized to me the finality and how immediate things can be for you if you are with the opposition. Because we did not have the luxury of, transitional arrangements or making accommodations for our constituents over the course of several years. I was with Leon on Sunday doing house visits. On Monday morning, it was absolute bedlam. There was a lot of chaos and confusion. And I think the CEC had back-to-back meetings in the next 2 days. And Leon ultimately resigned on the Wednesday. And a funny anecdote I'd like to share on this, right, is it really hit home to me when the day after Leon resigned, I was his legislative assistant there. I received an email from the parliament staff saying, "Dear Mr. Au, you are no longer a legislative assistant. P.S. We seem to have overpaid you for this month. Can you please return this sum of money to us?" Which was very stark. And I think for me, it was a very difficult moment for our party at that moment, naturally. As I said, I really liked Leon. I enjoyed working with him. And the first meeting I had was with Sylvia, the Iron Lady, stern-headed mistress. And I was very scared and I was very apprehensive. But I think over time, that party really moves in that direction where we're like, we have a responsibility to the residents of Aljunied and the residents of Serangoon. We have to take care of them. We have to continue on essential services. We have to, give them that commitment that, don't worry, you'll still be taken care of by our volunteer teams. The Aljunied MPs all stepped in to take turns to share the load. And I hope that the residents will look favorably upon us in a very difficult time. We did try to make the best of it and continue to serve them.
I have to acknowledge here that Jackson played a very big role in that aftermath, because it was quite challenging. Actually, can you imagine? It's not a good event, and then the volunteers probably feel disappointed. But he was able to mobilize them, and many of them, I think they searched themselves and decided that they are committed to the party, so they actually remained and continued with what they were doing, and some even stepped up more. So I would say that he played a pivotal role in that. But at the same time also, just to make a general observation that we will do our best to cover in such a situation. I think the PAP has the same issues, whenever any of their seats are vacated for whatever reason. But there is a reason why there is a sort of a recommended electorate to MP ratio. So if you look at the recent electoral boundaries review report, they will tell you that they're working on the assumption of 28.5 thousand electors to one MP. There's a reason for that, because the moment you're down by one, I mean, no matter how you try to cover, there will always be some sort of compromise. I mean, look, in Parliament, for instance, you don't get to file more questions because, or you don't have more time to speak or whatever. So on that front already, there is some underrepresentation. So it's not ideal. So we're actually looking forward to this election because, we know that much as we've tried our best, to cover, people deserve the full slate of candidates and MPs. So, we're actually looking forward to having that again.
Yeah, I think I also want to wrap things up a bit here. Talking about the election, what would, I guess, success look like for WP? Are we looking at more seats or just a status quo?
Well, I'll speak for myself because we have not actually prepared a statement on what does success look like for WP in the coming election. But of course, naturally, we would aim to defend our existing seats, right? And hope we can make some modest gains, in whatever way. So, I mean, whatever it is, having a presence in Parliament to us is critical because we are very directly able to serve, our constituents in those areas where we are voted in. And we'll have a constant platform through the regular parliamentary meetings and all that, constant platform for us to do our job, to hold the government to account and also to push for certain changes that we feel are important. And if without this seat in Parliament, I think it's going to be difficult. So maintaining our presence in Parliament, I think, would be one key KPI, I would say.
Going into this is my first election supporting the party. I think the question you asked can be framed a bit differently for me. To me, I think the party has already achieved tremendous success. If you believe the media reports and you look at the lineup of people that have been named by the party, these are all, I'm so proud and happy that the party is attracting this kind of talent, and we're going to this election giving Singaporeans a real good choice, a real chance to really look at the representatives and think, hey, these guys aren't bad. They don't look out of place on a PAP ticket, and they decided to come to the opposition. That to me is already great success because, I'm just so proud of the people that have decided to walk with the Workers' Party. So I hope we win more, of course, but it's my first election, so we'll see how it plays out.
As a prospective voter myself, you can make your pitch to me. I mean, why vote for the WP now in this time of uncertainty? I mean, I guess we've been hearing a lot, things are changing. I mean, the temptation, I guess, is to say, well, what we need now is stability, the same. I mean, why change things up?
You're right. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of change. But what I'm certain about going into the next election is that the PAP will still form its government. It will still have its majority. So I think my pitch to Singaporeans is that this is the best time. This is the best time, more so than any other time, to elect more opposition voices, provide that credible alternative to the government, and let them know that in times of uncertainty, what you don't need is everyone singing the same hymn sheet and going in the same direction. Because what if that plan fails or that direction is not the right path to take? What you need are diverse voices, diverse perspectives, diverse ideas that tell Singaporeans that we're listening to people and we're getting all these ideas and perspectives from them.
I guess it all depends on how you feel empowered as a voter, right? Do you feel that you'll be more empowered if the PAP was overwhelmingly strong in Parliament? And what if you have a view that doesn't quite sync with what they're doing? Where do you have the pressure point or the outlet to make sure that they pay attention to you? So interestingly, there was this member of the public was telling me in Chinese, 如果没有反对党，哪里有钱拿? So I say, okay, if there are no opposition parties, then do you think that we'll be getting all these, payments, you see? So this is something voters should think about, whether you're more empowered with an overwhelmingly strong PAP, or whether you'll be more empowered if you have other voices in Parliament. So that would be my pitch.
I think with that, let's close the conversation. Thank you, Sylvia and Jackson, for joining us. And I think the most important thing is to vote wisely, and good luck for whatever may come to you guys, which is soon, I think.
Thanks, Singji. Thanks, Tharun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Singzi.
This podcast is powered by Audio Technica.